And also my dad was disfellowshipped at some point. So he was very negative about um, elders coming at our door, like, are you doing well? Why were you not at the Kingdom Hall this week? And, these types of things. So when the door closed and we left, my dad was just like freaking out, and the whole environment in our home was just very negative.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel, Find the Alternative. I'm your host, Adam, 10-year former member of the World Mission Society Church of God in Salt Lake City, Utah. And today we have another former Jehovah's Witness who was a member for quite some time. And she actually left when she was 15 years old. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I was 15 years old. Yes.
So that's pretty impressive because in my mind, 15, I mean, you already have the weight of the world on your shoulders, and your family, from what it seems like, was in it. So we're going to dive into your story, and I want to know how a 15-year-old could leave such an organization that has such a hold on people. Like, that is something I've been really wanting to hear, is how is that possible? How did that happen? So, but I'll let you introduce yourself. Tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, your channel, and let's get into your story.
Yeah, so I'm Clementine. That's my name, and my channel name is Magical Clay. I'm 40 years old right now, so I've been through a lot of things already. Um, I've woken up from my 30s, I think. I started to realize that the world was very different than it was before. Um, I was a Jehovah's Witness. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness from birth till like 15 years old. So that's where I decided to quit and where I broke free. So yeah, that's basically the start of everything.
Okay. And when
Yeah.
you were raised as a Jehovah's Witness, did you feel different from the other kids? Because I've seen a lot of like Watchtower material. Well, they'll kind of depict when you're a kid and how, like, for instance, if somebody comes to the school and brings birthday cakes and presents and stuff, and they have like a birthday party for kids at school, right? You kind of see like these propaganda videos from the Watchtower where they're like, it's okay, like Jehovah's still your friend, right? Even though you can't have the cupcake or you can't have the birthday party, like Jehovah still loves you. So I would imagine being raised Jehovah's Witness, no holidays, no nothing like that. I would assume your childhood upbringing was very different from other kids. Did you feel that when you were growing up?
Absolutely. I really felt very different from everyone. I felt like children in my classroom didn't really understand me and what I was going through. I was going to the Kingdom Hall on a weekly basis with my parents, and later on with just my mom and my little brother, because I have an older brother and like an older sister, and but they were already moved out. They were not even in the truth anymore at that point, and so wasn't my father. But sometimes he came with us, and sometimes he didn't because he was actually disfellowshipped. But my experience as a child, like in the world, was I was a creative child, but also very shy, very scared of everything. Like I remember that I was in the first class, like the first years of elementary school, and I didn't even dare to ask my teacher to go to the bathroom, and then I like and just let it run down. I was so scared to ask if I could go to the bathroom, and it was a little bit humiliating. I didn't know how to defend myself if children were bullying me. Um, Children always thought it was very sad that I didn't have birthdays and I couldn't celebrate Christmas, for instance. And I was allowed to like hand out little treats and stuff, but never around my birthday. So it was maybe also a little bit different. So it was allowed to get the cupcakes, for instance, from other children that had a birthday party. But I was also allowed to hand out some treats. but just not around my birthday and also around Christmas. I was not allowed to make little Santas and like little reindeers with a red nose and Christmas trees, and I had to make like normal puppets and normal trees and just snowflakes. That is what I was allowed to make, and it was very different. And of course, yeah, I was going to Kingdom Halls on a weekly basis and going to conventions. And I was raised in a very closed off way with my family, very isolated. I was not allowed to play with other kids in their homes. My mom picked me up, and my mom was also a helicopter mom, so it was extra difficult to hang out with the world.
Yeah.
So I was playing with kids, but I was not really allowed to go that far. So we were pretty annoying at home. But also my parents were like, it's better that we have annoying kids in the home than they go outside and they meet the world. Yes, it is.
Yeah. And I can kind of relate with my kids. So something I was trying to tell
Okay.
you with the Whimsicog, right, is they don't
Yeah.
do holidays either. And I can relate with my oldest. She had a
Okay.
hard time in grade school because, you know, she was very conflicted because the Whimsicog cult, you can't draw pictures of Santa, right? You can't color pictures of Santa. You can't do anything resembling the holidays. And she was very conflicted because she's like, well, it's my assignment, right? I want to do good and please the teacher because it's my
Okay.
assignment. But at the same
Yeah.
time, the cult leaders in our organization in Salt Lake City were like, well, no, that's pagan. She can't do that. So for a 7-year old, they should not have to feel that kind of, you know, split like, oh, I want to please my teacher, but at the same time, this is going to lead me to hell if I color this picture of Santa or I have this Christmas cookie that's pagan. And
Yeah.
it got so bad to the point where my my little one, she would go and tell all the kids that, hey, Santa is basically Satan, right? It's the devil, and it's pagan, and you're not going to go to heaven. You're going to go to hell if you participate. Like, because she's a really smart kid. Like, whatever we teach her, she has a, like, we call it, like, she has a mind like a steel trap. Whatever goes in there doesn't come out. You know?
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah,
Very
and
intelligent.
she's extremely intelligent. Kind of terrifies me a little bit, but she she got we
We
got an
learn from each
email.
other.
Yeah, we got an we got an email from the teacher, and the teacher basically was reprimanding us because she's like, "Hey, your daughter's making all these kids cry because you know she's saying that Santa is the devil and all this kind of stuff because that's what we taught her. That's what the cult taught her, you know." And so I can kind of see my daughter's story in your story because she was like that. She was not she wasn't able to participate. Excuse me. She wasn't able to participate like how the other kids were able to participate. And I'm just thinking from a 7-year old, like a little kid standpoint, that's way too much responsibility for that. You know,
Absolutely.
it's way too much pressure for a little kid. Thankfully, she's 9 or almost 9, and we've been out for a year and a half at this point. So thankfully, I think Christmas is now our favorite holiday, and we celebrate Christmas and all these things now. But
That's great. That's
I
amazing.
I can relate to a little bit by seeing how my daughter was to kind of understanding how you probably felt growing up. And one thing I want to piggyback on that too is, were you always terrified of Armageddon when you were a kid? Was it taught to you very much?
No, honestly, no. I'm gonna be honest. Like our family was kind of falling apart when I was born already. Um, so no, it was actually very chaotic in our family. And I knew about Armageddon and I knew about Paradise, and we had these yellow books. These my book with Bible stories. Very familiar for Jehovah Witnesses, I think, and Extra Witnesses. It's a very traumatic book, actually, with a lot of scary pictures in there and scary Bible stories. But it didn't really affect me because I felt like, of course, they're saying like you're Job's friend at that age, at a young age, and it didn't really affect me because I felt like my parents were practicing being a Jehovah's Witness and not necessarily me. Like I felt more separated.
Gotcha. And with your classmates, did you ever feel like, because they weren't Jehovah's Witness and their parents weren't Jehovah's Witness, did you ever think in your mind, hey, these people, since they're not in the truth, they're basically going to be destroyed?
Um, I think I never really thought about it that way. Um, I knew that would be something that would happen, but I never really thought about it that way. I think I was more living in the moment, and yeah, I don't know. I was more in my own space, in my own mind. Also a big dreamer. So no, I wasn't really thinking about that. And I think we didn't really talk about that much at home either.
That's fair because I remember being in the cult and I remember having to think about that all the time. And even I don't know if my kids thought about that. I hope not. I haven't asked them about it to be honest,
No,
but I remember having to think like, we're the truth, we're in the true organization, and all the people that I've loved, cared about up until this point that have not joined the true organization, they're going to be destroyed, right? They're going to be destroyed. Number one, nuclear war being, and they're pretty graphic, right? They'll show you verses of like
absolutely.
your flesh will rot while you're standing, your eyes will rot in their sockets, your tongue will rot in your mouth, etc., like all that kind of stuff. And you're like thinking, okay, this is my family members that they're talking about. This is the friends that I
Yeah,
have that are not in the organization. And not only that, but then they're going to be sent to hell and burned forever because they're not in the true organization. And so I can imagine
yeah,
if I'm glad you said that because I can imagine as a kid, if that was instilled in you, that would probably cause a lot of really psychiatric problems and trauma. And so I'm definitely relieved you didn't have to be brought up like that. I'm definitely grateful my kids don't have to be brought up like that either anymore.
yeah, exactly. I fully understand. But now looking back at it, I feel like I I did visualize what would happen if Armageddon would come and everyone would be destroyed. But I think with the Jehovah's Witnesses, the resurrection of loved ones was also a thing in paradise, living in full love and perfection, basically, with everyone, with the animals in harmony. Every animal could live together, and every person could live together in harmony, as a Jehovah's Witness, of course. Um, that was maybe the positive side to it, and that there was a negative side with the Armageddon. I think we didn't really talk that much about it, and maybe my parents kept it more positive
Mhm.
in that side. Yeah,
Okay. And so walk me through, because, typically when you hear about cult exit stories, you don't really hear about teenagers leaving, right? You
exactly.
usually
Yeah,
you usually hear about the complete opposite, right? And I know for a fact,
absolutely.
I know tons of friends of mine that were in the Whimsicott cult from their childhood until they were in their 20s, and then they woke up, when they were an adult. So it's
Yeah,
kind of hard to fathom a 15-year-old coming to grips with reality after being indoctrinated their whole life. And
yeah,
not only that, but you're new to the world, even in and of itself. But on top of that, you have to worry about, okay, what's my family going to think? Okay, what are my friends going to think in the congregation? And then on top of that, once you leave, there's a whole new world, a wild world that doesn't have that Jehovah's Witness structure and doesn't have the terminology, doesn't have the same values, whatever the case is. So let's unpack this a little bit. So, number one, I guess walk us through the beginning process. How is it that you as a 15-year-old were like, I don't I don't think this is good.
yeah. I think there was a very like years of um that coming already to this point. I think as a child, I was already seeing going through the Kingdom halls that people felt fake. Like old people in gray suits were giving me a hand. They were like, "Oh, little girl, I remember you were a little baby, and I saw you, and I met you for the first time." And it was like, "Okay, like I don't know who you are.
Life
Like,
changing.
what do you want from me?" Yeah, change it. What do you want from me? Like, and it felt so awkward because also my parents were very awkward in the Kingdom Halls. Like, my dad was disfellowshipped because he started smoking at some point, and he was also an alcoholic. And so it was very hard to see him acting out and experiencing a lot of suffering and pain. He was very traumatized. Both my parents are very traumatized, and I saw that at home it was not going well. And, and so in Kingdom Halls and conventions, they were singing about the love of Jehovah, and we were singing together. And I always felt so sad inside. I felt so sad that they were talking and singing about the love of God, the love of Jehovah, and I was not experiencing that at home. I was not experiencing that. I was not experiencing that in the Kingdom Halls. Maybe a little bit at conventions because it was a very big gathering.
Mhm.
So 3 day convention was a big gathering, and you don't really know these people. But people in the Kingdom Hall, you see them every week. And also, my dad was disfellowshipped at some point, so he was very negative about um, elders coming at our door, like, "Are you doing well? Why were you not at the Kingdom Hall this week?" And these types of things. So when the door closed and he left, my dad was just like freaking out, and the whole environment in our home was just very negative. And so I saw different stories. I heard different stories about the love of God, and I saw different stories at my home and around me, and I felt that people were not genuine, not real in the Kingdom Halls. And I think it was also when I was 15 years old, a mix with, because my parents were trying to get together again. They were divorced, but they were trying to get together again. And my dad actually found a new wife, but he never told my mom at that point. And I was trying to tell my mom, like, dad has found someone else. And she was like, no, you're lying. You're trying to like pull us out, uh, separate us and stuff. And I was like, no, no, it's really happening. And I felt not seen and not heard, and a combination of those two things. Being in my teenage years, I was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. So I actually locked myself up in the bathroom. That happened before. And before we went to the Kingdom Hall, so that formation was mostly my mom and my little brother. I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to lock myself up in the bathroom. And I'm not coming out. And at first she got angry because she wanted me to come along. Also of course, that looks good for the outside world, like for the Kingdom
Yeah.
Hall. If you're coming along, of course. But I didn't care. I didn't care anymore. It broke me at some point, and I was like, no, I'm not coming with you anymore. And then at some point, when my mom was like, no, okay, leave her, you gotta find out yourself now. And I was very young, of course, and most people aren't allowed to do this and are not capable, and maybe are also trying to be a good Jehovah's Witness still. But I was already checked out for a long time. I never felt like I belonged there because I saw things were off and they were not good for me. And I wanted to discover what was meant for me, I think.
When you say your dad was disfellowship, did that mean you had to shun him? Because I know with the Whimscog, right, when you leave, and especially if you have a disdain for the organization, they typically cut you off and shun you. And I know Jehovah's Witnesses are notorious for that. So how was that relationship like? Where was he shunned when he was disfellowshipped?
Um, so yeah, from the Kingdom Hall, like from the organization he was, but in our home he was still coming back in and then went out and stuff. And um At some point, he was recovering. He was also recovering from alcohol, and I didn't know that. It's kind of weird. Like I only noticed recently. Like I think a couple of years ago, I was told that he was doing that, and I didn't even know that. I visited him, and I didn't even know where we were going. So the mouths were a little bit shut, and um, we were still seeing him, but he didn't come along with us to the Kingdom Halls anymore. Um, at some point, I didn't see him for 6 years because my mom didn't really want him involved with us anymore. He was kind of like depicted as a bad person, as an evil person. And I got scared at some point of him for being so, or like I was told he was an evil person and not safe to be around. And gladly, I'm now seeing him again. And my dad is actually a POMI, which is a term in Jehovah's Witnesses that is physically out and mentally in. So he loves Jehovah, but he is very traumatized of the organization. He doesn't want to have anything to do with them anymore. And he's also started questioning recently about what the governing body does. And the governing body is their own society in the Jehovah's Witnesses that are basically the highest people in order. And they are, well, making a lot of changes recently as well. Um, they are, yeah, the boss, the government of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And he really questions who are these people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like, I think it's in the nature of, and I'll call it what it is, it's a cult, you know. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
and I think, World Mission Society Church of God is too. And I think what happens with cults is they realize that they have to adapt. They have to change in order to survive because at the end of the day, if the money dries up, it doesn't matter what their doctrine is. They're done. You
No,
know,
exactly.
if they don't have if they don't have members, they don't have money. If they don't have money, they don't exist. So naturally, they have to adapt. They have to change, and that is a good sign for people in it because that is what wakes a lot of people up. You know, because it's a sham, it's a fraud. And back to your story here, when I can imagine, when you're 15, right? Like you're already going through puberty for crying out loud. You're already going through a lot of things, growing pains and
Yes,
figuring out the world, figuring out yourself, and throw all that
absolutely.
on top of, you're leaving your faith that you were growing up, you're leaving your truth, the true organization. And I imagine, that was probably extremely painful and scary and terrifying. And when you did kind of decide to start separating yourself from the organization, were you afraid that you would lose your family, your livelihood, everything that you had?
Um, I didn't care that much anymore. The point I was going for was to become free in this world. That's what I wanted to do. And from a young age, I already knew that I was here to be kind to other people, that I was actually here to interact. Maybe at a convention or like in a bus ride, I was smiling at people because I saw people and I could interact with them, and I was smiling because that was kindness.
Yeah.
That's what I knew people needed. So I was looking for that, and I started to live my own. I was going my own path. I started to dress very differently. I was a very creative child. I turned 16 and I got friends groups, and I was going out at some point when I turned 17, and it was just, yeah, I was very alternative at that point. And I, yeah, I was just living in the world. That's what I wanted. I was connecting with homeless people. I was talking to everyone. I was living in the city and just hanging out with people, and I just wanted to be there. I didn't want to be home anymore.
You were living life.
I was living life, yeah, in the world, but in a positive way because I was not really doing bad things or anything, but I just wanted to experience what life was about, the thrill of life.
Yeah, the unfiltered, raw experience. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
so walk me through this. When you left, did you ever feel guilt from leaving? Like, oh, did I just abandon, Jehovah? Did I just abandon the true organization? Or did you not really think about it much?
No, I don't think so. Like I've done things that I could have chosen better, I think, at the time. But no, I was not really afraid of that. Even though there was still a pinch of spirituality in me, I felt like there is something out there, but I don't know what it is, you know? I feel like there's something spiritual out there, but I don't know what it looks like. But it's definitely not Jehovah. It's not something that I want to link to that spiritual feeling. Actually.
Yeah, and I can definitely understand that too, because a lot of times when people leave this organization or even my organization or a handful of other high control groups, a lot of time they have doubt when they leave. Like, they have like a buyer's remorse, if you will, and they'll leave, they'll step out, and they'll start living their life. But then every now and then they'll have a recollection of like, wait, were they right about this? Oh wait, did I make the right decision? Am I cursed now for leaving the one true God, the one true religion? But you didn't let that affect you.
No, absolutely not, because I knew I was doing good, or like I believed I was doing good, you know. So what I was doing was true to myself at that moment, and I was not scared. I think that was the most confident I was in myself when I was around 16, maybe 17, and it very much changed when I turned 18. I'm gonna be honest about that because that's where reality of adulthood hit me.
Yeah, it hits all of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
No one's exempt from
absolutely,
getting smacked in the jaw with life, especially adult life.
absolutely.
Um,
Oh yeah,
so after you decided to separate yourself from the organization, what about your family? Were they still trying to get you back into the organization? Were they even still a part of the organization after you left? Or kind of walk us through your family dynamic?
yeah. So my brother and sister, like older brother and sister, are not in the truth anymore. My mother still is, but she's watching live stream from the Kingdom Hall because she's in her 70s, so she cannot attend anymore. So she's basically a me. And I have a younger brother, um, and he still lives with her. He's in his 30s, but he has autism, so he cannot really take care of himself. And
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And my dad is now married again with another woman, and he has a child as well. So I have a half sister, but he's not in the faith anymore necessarily. But he loves Jehovah. He's like yeah, also a pony, and but he's questioning. He started questioning, um, and I don't know. I think my mom tried to get me back into the faith, the opportunities that she had, and she was talking about going to the Kingdom Halls before and going to the conventions. She always showed me that she was going there, and she hoped that I was getting excited, and like I was kind to her about it. I was like, oh, I'm happy that you found it beautiful. This whole ceremony, or like ceremony, but like this whole weekend, for instance, at a convention. I'm happy that you enjoyed it. And you had a good time, and yeah. So that was like the bond. I'm also still seeing my mom and my parents. So that's also a great thing because it could have been different if I chose not to be in the truth. And also, yeah, I talked with my dad a lot about this uh, while he questions things. And yeah, I don't know, but I never really looked back. I started living my own life, and yeah,
And it sounds like the family dynamic, they weren't really trying to push you back into the fold too much, from what it sounds like.
no, exactly. Yeah, it's also maybe because my parents, like my mom was a Jehovah's Witness, but my dad wasn't. So my mom had more connection with it than my dad.
Gotcha. So I guess your dad kind of paved the way for you to have that freedom, or I guess just for you to not have that stigma of, oh, she left the organization. Because a lot of times in these stories, especially with the
Yeah,
shunning, people who decide to leave the organization, whether you be family or friend or whatever, you get cut off and
yeah,
you're not allowed to talk or meet or anything like that. So sounds like you dodged a bullet on that one.
absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely true, and I'm happy that I was a little bit more free in that. Yeah,
Yeah, you'd have to go through like the shame and demonizing and all that kind of stuff. But I guess when you did go to conventions, because you said you went to conventions as a kid, I can just imagine they were probably super boring to you as a kid. Because
yeah, it was extremely boring. Um,
I remember, so I was raised LDS, and I remember we used to have to go to conference, which is like where they meet once a year and they just have like a 2 day conference. And I, I imagine it's pretty similar to a convention where it's just like a bunch of like
yeah,
high up leaders just talking for 2 days and they each have like, an hour long sermon. Then there's breaks for lunch and all that kind of stuff. And then there's
but
all
were
these
they
other,
big gatherings? Were
oh,
they big gatherings in
massive,
the LDS?
massive.
Yes?
If you could, but then a lot of times they're just online too. So depending on your capability,
Oh,
but
okay,
we
yeah.
would have those kind of things like very similar to conventions. And I remember being a kid and going and just being like falling asleep and just like counting the time.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
hearing, I guess, nothing sticking. So I can imagine that would probably be
yeah,
torture for a child.
yeah, absolutely. It already started in the Kingdom Halls that I was feeling like it was so still. Um, it was so boring to be around these people with gray suits and old people talking about God. And I was like, yeah, okay, I don't care. I like to sing though, but I didn't like those songs.
Yeah.
And it was just, yeah, it never, like you said, it didn't stick with me. And when it comes to the conventions, I feel like that it was also very hard because my mom and us were usually like we had to travel for 2 hours maybe, and then 2 hours back.
Oh,
So
geez.
my mom, yeah, my mom decided sometimes to go every day, like a 3 day convention, every day, and every day we went there and then went back home same day, and then again the next morning we're going there and then go back, and it was extremely exhausting. I don't even know how my mom did that. She was older than I am now, and I'm like, I wouldn't do that, 3 days after each other. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah. So when you left and you started, opening yourself to life, opening yourself to the world, um, was it terrifying? Like, because obviously you had no sense of direction, right? You were kind of abandoning your upbringing, if you will, because you were raised Jehovah's Witness. So,
Yeah,
was it scary? Was it exciting? Was it both? When you, as a teenager, just freed yourself from that, but now you have to tackle the whole world and figure out who you are and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. Well, I held everyone's hand at first. Um, I had boyfriends. I wanted to date guys. I had boyfriends, and they really enjoyed that I was so needable. You know, they couldn't meet me, and it was very scary. Like also older guys, they were like, "Oh, you're so unaware of this world, and you're also very naive." And people were angry with me of being so naive of the world, but also they thought it was great that I was like that. So a lot of people profited of me at that time, financially, emotionally, and in different ways. I was just, I kept on going and going and going, and that really led me to a collapse. I was very scared. I was very shy. I, but also on the other hand, I had to learn confidence at the time. And
You had to
yeah, I've
teach
done
yourself
things that
confidence at that
I've done.
point.
Yeah, exactly. Create that because you know your vision, you know where you're going, you know your vision, you understand it.
And I would imagine, you know, when you decided to step away from the organization, and you probably imagine there would be some ripple effect with your friends, family, and your entire life at that point. Um, did you expect it to turn out as well as it did, as far as your experience leaving and in the world?
Yeah, so I had a very romanticized idea of the world, actually. I think that's the first step. I was romanticizing everything that I couldn't do, and then later on, at some point, um, like I also said before, like when I turned 18, everything like clapped back to me. I
Yeah,
got all the bricks in my face of thinking that I knew exactly what I was doing. And when I turned 18, for instance, my mom was also like, okay, you are 18 now, you're an adult. I am going to leave you like, like do your own thing. You know, it's okay. I'm going to leave you. I'm not going to tell you anymore what you are okay to do and not okay to do. Just leave. And that was very scary because she never teach me how to live in the world. So she was like, okay, be free now, but she never teach me how to be an adult in this world. How do you do that? How does that work?
yeah,
And I really fell to the ground at that point. I was exhausted from partying. I was not good taking good care of myself. I was mentally ill. I was really feeling mentally ill. I even had a point in that year that I couldn't go outside alone anymore. I was shocked from what I like suddenly saw. I started waking up, but it was very scary.
and I think this kind of plays into the, the Jehovah's Witness of how they view the world, right? And
Yeah,
Whimsicog is very similar. Everything in the world is evil, trying to kill you, is destructive and bad, and all this kind of stuff. Which, don't get me wrong,
yep,
there is evil in the world. There is bad people. Right? Of course, that kind of goes without saying. You don't exactly need to look far to find that, you know.
yeah,
But there is a beauty to the world. There is a peacefulness. There is you know, um, a sense of purpose. There is a lot of good things, right? And I think a lot of these organizations they focus way too much on the negative of the world, and I believe it's fully for control, right? Because if you make the outside bad and everything is bad and evil, naturally, who wants that? Nobody wants that. And so it's a way to control
no,
people, to keep them inside the organization, keeping them under the thumb of the suits in the top. And
yeah,
I guess you kind of experienced both. You had this romanticized idea of what the world was, but then the world kind of gave you a reality check, if we can say that.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
at the end of the day, once you moved past that, let's say, bump in the road when you were 18, did you started seeing like the beauty of life, the beauty of freedom, the beauty of making your own choices and building something that you yourself built?
I Well, I actually found my then boyfriend that I was with for 10, 11 years, and we also have a daughter together. And our daughter is almost 18 now. Next month she will turn 18. So we were very young, moving in together. I was 20 years old when I moved out from my mom's house to our own apartment, and
Okay.
it was a lot of struggling, I think, especially at first. So I met my boyfriend, my then boyfriend, in that friend group. But I was also, yeah, mentally unwell, very unstable. All my trauma started getting up, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I could never um, give them a place to rest in this relationship. And he couldn't understand me because he wasn't raised religious or like as a Jehovah's Witness. So it was always very difficult to be together and to live, like be in a relationship as an ex-Jehovah's Witness.
Do you think a lot of it came from like trust issues, or because I know a lot of these organizations, once people leave, they have a really hard time with like an authoritative figure. They have a really hard time with um rules and structure, and because and I understand it because you know, these cults, they use too many rules, right? They use too much structure, like
Absolutely.
micromanaging and so many freaking rules, and it's absurd. But it turns you
Yeah,
off to like any rules, any structure, any authority whatsoever. It turns you off to trusting anyone with, especially something as like your love, your life, um, and so it does make a lot of sense because especially if you've been burned and you were you leave this kind of group, that you leave this kind of control, naturally, I feel like a lot of people struggle with that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
in Whimsicog, they actually have arranged marriages. So a lot of times
Oh, really?
they'll just slap people together. Um and that ends just as well as you might think. And it
Oh,
creates
wow.
a
Okay.
lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, and that's the reason why
Yeah,
we're talking about these kind of groups, these kind of organizations, because the trauma is real, the damage is real, even though you were only in, when you were a kid to 15. You even said some of the trauma you experience is when you were an adult, it's coming up, and you're
yeah,
realizing it because it rears its ugly head and you're like, oh, I haven't dealt with this. I haven't, and I feel like a lot of the
yeah,
time we don't deal with it. We just kind of push it back down. We suppress it, but it's not healthy. It's,
absolutely. Yeah.
you know, Um, so tell us a little bit now, what made you want to start your YouTube channel and share awareness about the Jehovah's Witnesses?
So yeah, I was really actually searching for myself when I turned 30. I think maybe 28. My boyfriend and I broke up after around 10 years, I think. We tried for another year, but it didn't work out anymore. But it was like a good breakup. But that aside, I started waking up from everything that happened. Like I was very angry with my parents, and I had all these thoughts coming up, and I wanted to share them. Like I wanted to share my own story. And the channel that I'm on, a Magical Clay, is a platform that has always been spiritual. I've always had spiritual videos, and I have like thrown away certain videos, and I privated some of them, and I just didn't know really what to do. And I made a video about I was a Jehovah's Witness, and I noticed that this video actually did pretty well. And I was like, people are interested in this, and even people that are not Jehovah's Witness, that were Jehovah's Witness themselves, or were in a cult or whatever, they were very interested in my story, and they were like, "Oh, this is so brave that you're sharing this." People that I knew, also from back in the day when I was younger, people started to find me, And I was like, okay, this is nice, but I didn't really know what to do with it. And then now, years later, like 2 years later, um, I was like, maybe I can pick this up again because this is really interesting to me. I was watching videos about ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. For instance, Lloyd Evans is a big ex-Jehovah's Witness YouTuber still. He has a lot of knowledge and a lot of videos about this topic. I was watching his videos. I think it was still in lockdown, and that really interested me. And I was like, okay, I need to watch more cult videos because I love this. And then I started to feel this connection to making videos. I need to make videos. I need to make videos again, but I don't know about what. I started continue this journey and I shared my story again and I felt like it was feeling like a purpose. Like I had to do this and it worked and I couldn't stop doing it anymore. And now that's why I am having this channel. I'm very much enjoying it. I'm very much enjoying just seeing people in the comments saying hello from Scotland, hello from Ireland, and from whatever, like Slovenia, whatever. It's amazing to connect with everyone. Everyone has their own story. People in the comment sections are being very honest with me, and I love that. And they have their own story to share. I made a video about the blood, like the blood transfusions, and people are sharing their deepest stories about that, losing people because they didn't have blood transfusions, and it is amazing. It really feels like a purposeful YouTubing.
Yeah. And I can kind of relate to that too because, a lot of these organizations, they'll say to ex-members, "Well, why don't you just ride off into the sunset and leave us alone?" You know,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
I don't know if you've ever got any comments like that, but I get it all the time where they're like, "Just leave us alone. Like you left, you made your decision, just leave us alone." And
yeah. I've seen that before. Yeah,
the thing is like, okay, well, if you knew that an organization was systematically hurting people, systematically extorting people, exploiting people, lying to people, breaking people, and you were a part of that system and you had a unique ability to help people in that system, what's being a good person? Just walking away or using that skill, using that voice that you have in order to save one or two or who knows, maybe hundreds, you don't know. And that's kind of my
exactly.
answer to people who, maybe they're like, you know, well, you guys don't you have anything better to do? Well, what's better than having a conversation about one's experiences that are real? What's better than
Yeah,
having one's conversations with each other that we can both benefit from, we can both relate from, and so can countless others who maybe don't have the capacity or have the voice to do so. We get to meet people all over the world who have similar experiences, and I think there's a way you can connect that you don't really get in other places like that, and not everyone has a voice to come out because it does take a lot of grit. It does take a lot of time and it does take a lot of effort to come out and share a story, especially your story and being vulnerable like that. And not everybody wants to do it, but I feel like a lot of people can benefit from it. Um,
yeah,
and so let me ask you this. Is there anything, let's say there's Jehovah's Witnesses watching, or even people from my cult watching that are very similar to the Jehovah's Witnesses? Is there anything maybe you want to speak to them about and say, hey, if you're, if you're a current Jehovah's Witness, this is what I would recommend you doing right now?
yeah. Um, yeah, I think I want to say that um, whatever you're going through right now, it's the right thing that you're feeling. Even whatever decision you're making right now at this moment, when you're stuck, when you're feeling misunderstood, focus on the things that you love to do that are for you. Look at the little pieces that are there that you can reach. Uh, Yeah, find the things that you, even if it's in the religion, still find things for you that make you feel that you're a part of this world in a positive way. Um, and maybe it's your time with Jehovah, or maybe it's your time with the Winscock uh, belief system. It doesn't matter. Like every little light is out there, and if you need someone to reach out to, there's someone for you. Even if it's hard in the organization, maybe it's hard in the cult you're in, um, there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm sure of it. Absolutely. You can do anything, even if it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I'd agree. And, a lot of times in these organizations, you kind of doubt yourself, you doubt your ability, but I think everyone's capable of living how they want, doing what they want. And I feel like cults have a unique ability to suppress people, right? If you're creative, if you're artistic, and, you know, they can either exploit you with those talents or they tell you to bury those talents. Um, but I would say too to any of those watching, whether Jehovah's Witnesses or Whimsicott, is there are a lot of people in your situation. There's a lot of people that are looking for something else, but they're too afraid to step out of their comfort zone. They're too afraid to step out of the religion they've been raised in, or they're too afraid to step out in, the real world and let go of the cult because, the cults have a unique offering, and that's to give you single handedly a community, to give you friends, to give you family, to give you hope, to give you a purpose. And sometimes
Yeah,
finding friends, finding hope, finding purpose on your own is a terrifying aspect. And it's much more comfortable just for you to be given, hand fed that by the organization. And so I would encourage those who want to, who haven't done that yet, go find your purpose, you know, go find what gives you hope. Go find actual friends that are not friends just because you're in a religion, in a certain belief system, but find friends who are friends to you and who, want the best for you and who tell you tough things, right? Like, hey, we shouldn't, go down that path. Like, friends shouldn't be an echo chamber. Friends should be those who want the best for you to help you. And sometimes that's a little tough love. Um, but I'd say that too, because a lot of people leaving these organizations, they don't know how to find hope, purpose, or friends, and so I'd say it is scary, but it's well worth it to find good friends, to find a purpose that you feel like is your purpose, to explore what you think your purpose is, and really just live life. Figure out what your talents are, figure out what your likes, dislikes, all that kind of stuff is, instead of just relying on the narrative to provide that for you, if that makes sense.
yeah. I couldn't have
Um,
said it better, I think.
Thank you. Sometimes I ramble and I don't know if I'm even
No
making any
problem.
sense. So,
Yeah, you do. You do actually.
oh,
And I think it also kind of synchronizes with what I said about this. Basically, find the thing that is worthwhile to live for you personally.
yeah. And find out who you are, because you have a cult identity that's been molded over years or decades. Find out who you are. That's something that I'm still working on. I'm still finding out who I am. I'm
Absolutely.
still finding out what have I been suppressing? What have I been hiding? What have I been, not true about or faithful about or whatever the case is? Because it takes a minute to get rid of your cult self and to find yourself again. And it's a painful process.
Yeah.
It's a slow process. So give yourself patience, give yourself time and space, and figure out who you are, you know, because now you can. If you leave these control groups, you have the time, you have the space to figure out who you are. And that's extremely important, because if you don't know who you are, then what are you? Who are you? You know? So
Yeah.
I think I'll, leave it right here. Any last words for the viewers?
Well, I think I can hook in on what you just said. I think it's very important to get to know yourself first. A lot of people are following into worldly relationships and also find out there that it's not the way they were romanticizing it. And it's mostly because you are failing to see certain things, or maybe failing is a hard word. I think um, you're not seeing things yet for yourself. And that is why where the friction is still with other people, maybe the world and how you see things. And it's important to get to know yourself. And when you get older, you start to see more of yourself, more is getting exposed, and let it come through you. Um, is very important. Get to know yourself, see yourself, love yourself, who you are, and you immediately love more around you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say appreciate those around you too. Your relationships and especially the good ones, you know. Because some that I, real quick, some that I
Yeah,
do, I guess, have a hard time getting over sometimes is all the time that I spent serving the organization I was a part of, as opposed to giving that time to those who actually cared about me, to those who actually loved me, wanted the best for me. So I would say time is something you can never get back. And if you're not using your time wisely for those who mean most to you, time catches up to all of us, and that time is something you can never make again. You can make money, you can make friends, whatever the case is, but time, that's something that I can never get back
don't
from
get
this.
that back.
Yeah,
No,
you can't get this back from the organization, and that's something that I have to, you know, still work on and work out and stuff. But I would say, a year in freedom is because a lot of people in these organizations who have been raised in Jehovah's Witness, who've been in WIMSCOG for 30, 40 years, they'll just kind of,
yeah,
they have this mindset of, well, I will just, I've already gone too far. I've been in this for so long and I'm so deep in it and I can't just leave it, right? Because then it would be a waste.
no,
Then it would be a
exactly.
waste of time or something like that. And
Yeah,
so I'm just going to die in this organization. I'm just going to fill the rest of my life in this organization. But it's like, okay, but even if you were in for 30, 40 years, even if you're 99, wouldn't you rather have at least 1 year of freedom, 6 months of freedom,
yeah,
experience that?
yeah,
I would say even that 1 year of freedom would outweigh the 99 years of captivity.
yeah, exactly. Just for the experience, even if it's just for the experience. And yeah, a lot of people also with Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot of people are staying there because they're still believing, and a lot of older people are still believing that the world is ending very soon and that they will find their loved ones again. But then some people start questioning, just like my dad. Um, and some people are like, no, I still want to be that. It's also very hard, I think, older people usually have been a little bit more indoctrinated, like they were more like sensitive to it, I think, than if you look at the youth. Um, I think a lot of young people are not really choosing to become a part of a cult or maybe Jehovah's Witness, and but I've seen that it can happen just like that. People can just get into a cult just like that because they are in need of love, they are in need of community, they are in need of something that is giving them something positive because they need it.
Yeah. And and it just depends on like, okay, well, what conditions are you comfortable with? Because they do give you all that, but it's not free.
Oh no,
Comes at a
no,
very big cost.
absolutely,
But
absolutely, yeah,
well, this has been a really amazing interview. This has been really enlightening, really awesome. And of course, I'm
yeah,
going to collaborate with you.
absolutely.
So if you're watching and you're from my channel, number one, I appreciate you, but go check out her stuff. She's got a lot of good stuff and she's going to produce a lot of really good stuff. So I'm excited about her channel and what she's got going on. And on the screen, you're probably going to see a playlist that I'm recommending, and you're going to see a uh, video that YouTube's wanting you to watch. And So if you want to check those out, feel free and be sure to like, share, and subscribe and do all that good stuff. And we'll see you on the next one. God bless.
Yes, thank you very much.